Hey everyone, welcome back into Bible Boot Camp. My name's Derek. This is episode 3, so if you have not had an opportunity to watch episodes 1 or 2, I would strongly recommend going back and watching those as we are continuing our series through the book of Genesis. We're in chapter 4 today, where we are going to hear the history between Cain and Abel, and we are going to witness the first murder, as this is a continuation of the origins of sin. In our last episode, episode 2, we saw that God has banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden due to their disobedience. This disobedience was influenced by the serpent. We got a little bit of history on the serpent as well, and we know that the serpent is Lucifer, Satan, the devil, known by a bunch of different names. So again, if you haven't checked out episode 2, please do before going forward here, and let's jump right into the text today. We are in chapter 4 of Genesis, and it says, "Now Adam had relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, 'With the Lord's help, I've produced a man.' Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of the crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected." We're going to pause there because I want to define the word dejected. The word dejected means sad and depressed or dispirited. The reason that this is so important is because these emotions are going to later play a very big role in what happens between the two brothers. But let's continue with verse 6 here. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." So if you remember from episode 1, we talked about that word subdue, right? Subdue means to quieten or to make quiet. Another word for it is peace, right? To overcome. So the really, really important lesson that we get from these couple of verses here is that when we allow our emotions, our anger, our feelings of being dejected to take over, that is allowing sin to creep in and then take us over instead of us subduing sin. Let's continue. Verse 8. "One day, Cain suggested to his brother, 'Let's go out into the fields.' And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Afterwards, the Lord asked Cain, 'Where is your brother? Where is Abel?' 'I don't know,' Cain responded. 'Am I my brother's guardian?' But the Lord said, 'What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground yield good crops to you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be homeless and wander on the earth." Okay, so this is important. If you remember what we were talking about in the last episode, the punishment for sin is death. And it's not always a physical death. So because Cain killed his brother Abel, God's punishment to him was that the earth no longer would yield crops for him. And why is that important? Why is that a punishment to Cain? Well, think about who Cain was. Cain was someone that cultivated the earth. That was his very existence. That was his reason for existence. He was to cultivate. He was to till the earth, to produce good crops, to produce food from the soil. And now God is saying, no longer will you be able to do that. So his whole identity, his whole purpose on earth has now been stripped away from him. So again, death isn't always a physical thing. It can sometimes be our identity is taken away from us because of sin. Sin takes us away from those things that we are supposed to be going towards. So, what is our calling? What is our purpose? What we're supposed to be going towards? Sin will keep you from it. And in this case, that is what's happened with Cain. There are a lot of lessons that can be learned from this story. And if you remember, in the very first episode, we talked about the Bible not being taken literally and the Bible not being taken figuratively, but being understood spiritually. And this is one of those moments, because what we should be able to do is, even though this is a true story, this is true events that happened, we shouldn't just be able to deject from it, don't murder, don't kill. Obviously, that's important, and we want to follow that rule. However, there's layers to this, right? And the layer that I really want to focus in on the lesson today is going to be the layer of emotions. God is very, very clear in warning Cain not to allow his emotions to overtake him, because if he does, then that's going to allow sin to creep in. But he ignores and does not heed the word of God and allows his emotions to get the best of him. Something that I heard that I think is just very profound is that it is okay for us to experience emotions. As a matter of fact, it's necessary. It's impossible for us not to experience emotions. The problem is when we become our emotions. So there's nothing wrong with being angry. We all get angry. The problem is when we become anger. When anger becomes a part of who we are. When anger is the way that we are perceived. When someone says to you, man, you're always angry, that's a problem. Same thing can be said about sadness. We're all going to experience sadness. It's okay to be sad. But when we become that emotion, when we become sadness, and when you are constantly hearing like you're always sad, you're always depressed, you're always dejected, that's where the problem comes in, because we are no longer just experiencing the emotions, we are becoming the emotions. And when you become an emotion, that allows sin that is associated with those emotions to creep in. Let's go ahead and read a little bit further here. In verse 13, Cain replied to the Lord, "My punishment is too great for me to bear. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me." The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Something that you're going to find the more that you read the book of, or sorry, not just the book of Genesis, but the Bible itself, is that anytime that someone leaves the Lord's presence, the direction that they travel is east. This is a common theme throughout the entire Bible. When someone leaves the presence of the Lord, they travel east. So this is the first time that we see this in the Bible, right here in the book of Genesis. Notice that the Lord is punishing Cain, obviously, for his actions. But notice that, as we discussed in the last video as well, we have free will. Right? We have free will. God's not going to override our free will. So he is punishing Cain for his actions, but he did not stop the action. A lot of times you're going to hear people say, well, why does God allow pain and suffering? Why does God allow murder? Why does God allow these terrible, terrible things to happen? And the reality of it is, a it's not an indictment on God that he's allowing these things. What God's allowing is for us not to be puppets, right? For God is not playing puppeteer in the sky. He's allowing us free will so that we can make our own decisions. This is another illustration, though, that there are consequences and repercussions behind those decisions that we make. So we have to make good decisions. And if we're making good decisions and we're not allowing our emotions to overtake us, then we are going to be able to subdue, able to overcome sin. Hope this helped you today. We are going to continue in the next episode in chapter 5. So go ahead and recap chapter 4, and then we're going to head into chapter 5 of Genesis. Until then, God bless.